Here's the truth of the matter. Creativity, the most effective creative art and work you can do is the truth, right? So the more I know about myself, the better the work. Aww. So heroin is not going to make me write a love ballad better than if I was sober. And the reverse is true. So therefore the best work I can possibly do, the best relationship I can best have with my children, with my family, whatever, is honesty. So the whole notion of, yeah, I did coke and I wrote 3 albums, doesn't mean they're any good.
That's so interesting.
It means you do a lot of stuff.
Michael, thank you for driving 73 miles to come to the beautiful Ventura studios of Recovery Today.
Well, I'm so used to driving to Santa Barbara, you know, which I love. You know, I love Santa Barbara. I love California. I moved to California, and when did I come? 72. I came to America in a rock band and stayed. And I just adore the coast, you know, so it was pleasant.
Oh.
It's good to go somewhere you haven't been before. And you guys know what I'm talking about when I say that, because that was the whole notion of getting high.
And of this interview, to talk about your story and to inspire.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about when I was looking at your bio, and I noticed songwriter, singer, actor, goes on and on. Do you think there was a connection, or is a connection, between creativity and addiction? Do you think the brain of an addict is often a very creative brain?
No.
You do not?
I think that's all mythological nonsense.
So the thing about, what is Pollock, the artist, you know, he
well,
had to
I
drink.
mean, that's all romanticism. The truth of the matter is everybody's capable of everything.
Did it change for you? Did your creativity change when you got sober?
Here's the truth of the matter. Creativity, the most effective creative art and work you can do is the truth, right? So the more I know about myself, the better the work. Aww. So heroin is not going to make me write a love ballad better than if I was sober. And the reverse is true. So therefore the best work I can possibly do, the best relationship I can best have with my children, with my family, whatever, is honesty. So the whole notion of, yeah, I did coke and I wrote 3 albums, doesn't mean they're any good.
That's so interesting.
It means you do a lot of stuff.
Right, because you're not accessing your spiritual side, because you're not.
Well, everything is about your spiritual side. I mean, one's life it's a spiritual life. Of course, it's a physical life, and one does things for physical reasons. But if you're talking about, does drugs alter one's consciousness? Yes, it does. It makes you an idiot. It made me a repetitious fool. I would talk about my accomplishments when I didn't have any, and I would tell the same story 17 times in a row on coke. Or in heroin, I would just hide in the corner with shades and pretend to be Lou Reed. I mean, it's all pretense.
It was all false self.
It's pretense and pretentious and devastating.
Do you know what you were trying to cover up? What was so uncomfortable?
I think because everything came to me so quickly. You know, I was into So With Love with Sidney Poitier in 1966.
Right, I did read that, Michael.
Right, and doing that early in my life and having that sort of an attention, you go, wait a minute, I'm absolutely unkillable. You know, I'm going to live forever. This is spectacular. This is the way it is. And of course, any career, any artistic career, you know, has peaks and valleys. And I thought I was immortal, and I was proved wrong. And I also felt I could do whatever I wanted. And remember, in the mid-60s in London, in the rock and roll world where the pavements are, are paved with velvet, you know, and it's this romantic, beautiful, glamorous rock and roll vision you're living, you get carried away.
I was going to say, you got caught up. But it wasn't sort of this early trauma kind of thing or anything like that?
Oh, I went through such trauma. I went to these boarding schools. See, my father was an aristocrat, a Marquis, you know, for you guys out there just to know the British class system. And I was at the top of that list and hated every hypocritical second of it. But I went to these boarding schools where I was treated, shall we say, the sexual abuse is enormous in that world. I hope it isn't today, but at that time, everything was under the carpet. And, you know, I went through a lot of issues there.
Oh, my.
I never knew my mother and father.
Because you were living in these boarding schools.
No.
So you had no.
They put me in a boarding school because they had separated. She was a singer and a stripper, and he was a Marquis who embezzled money, went to prison, and my mother was a schizophrenic and went to an institution. So I was in these schools from 8 to 16 alone. I never went to home.
Oh my goodness, Michael.
It's okay. I learned a lot. They had these libraries, these amazing books, Marcus Aurelius, Oscar Wilde, you know, all the great philosophers, Krishnamurti, and I read everything. So, you know, I was fed by academia, but I was so opposed to the hypocrisy,
The class system.
the world itself, you know. I mean, everything you guys have heard is true, you know, it's a dreadful situation. But at 16, I left and I went to drama school, and I immediately started to work as a young actor, and then, you know, with that came rock and roll. I did a nude musical.
Did you always know you had a creative spark?
No, I just, out of the box, out of the egg, out of the womb, I, you know, was tap dancing. You know, I mean, I didn't make a choice. That's just who I was, you know. I wanted to entertain.
So obviously with this kind of trauma, and we'll get past trauma, we'll get to some more positive things, although I think it's important for people to see that, you know, you had this early abandonment, this early trauma, and yet you overcame it. You overcame it.
Yeah, I had a strange distancing from what was going on. I didn't take it emotionally, but unconsciously. Of course you do.
Well,
so you deal with those in other ways, don't you?
That's the acting out. I mean, I just saw Rocket Man with Elton John. You know, he had parents. I don't know if you saw the movie, but apparently.
Yeah, I saw the movie. You know, and I liked the movie. But the thing about all of that is, especially rock and roll movies, we could get sideways on this at a tangential level. I want to see the real dirt under the fingernails of rock and roll. You know, the trajectory is tough childhood, wrote some hits, snorted a lot of coke, had wild sex, got sober, and worked with rescue animals.
That's so funny because my
it's
boyfriend felt
that's
what he said. He writes and he just said this is so like off, this Rocket Man.
Well, it's just whitewashed. It has to be, you know. But you know, my aim as an actor and a writer is to try and portray something that's actually real, you know, that really goes on. You know, and the Motley Crue thing was obviously an exaggeration of debauchery and so on and so forth. Not an exaggeration, it was just a sort of a cartoon version of what went on. You don't see people at 3 days after a coke run.
No.
You know, let me see that. If movies were being made, and you know, by young directors that care emotionally about it, it'd be very different. You know, it's a different story.
So the song Obsession, tell me all about that. Tell me the
Well, I was 6
inspiration.
6 months sober.
Oh.
And the word obsession was used by everybody. Every meeting I went to in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I strongly recommend anybody to do. It certainly opened the door for me, you know, and then I got into a room and I realized there were a lot of rooms in that house. But it certainly started me off in the right direction.
Yeah, you said you don't go to meetings quite as
I
much.
don't go to I've been sober 38 years. I celebrated it on June 19th.
Congratulations,
just a little while ago,
Michael.
So, but I'm on the radio every day to 5 million listeners, and the theme of all of the rock and roll music that I play, I deal with it as I'm talking to you, as a sober guy who still wears black leather trousers. So, and there's a symbolism there that you don't have to throw away your artistic self, you know, just because you want to live a spiritual life. But obsession, I heard every day. You know, you're obsessed. It's obsessive. It's self-obsessed. You know, which I always thought was cool because it's just a shift away from self-conscious or self-aware.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Right.
It's just another form of obsession.
Well, it's a distraction from self. Like if I obsess about you, I don't have to think about myself.
No,
and
exactly, and exactly.
Or if I obsess on this alcohol, or in my case, getting you sober, or whatever it was.
In my case, it was nail polish. I went to Nail Polish Anonymous for years. I just couldn't get straight.
So funny.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have been. Well, how about maybe you should have been a comedian?
Well,
too.
honey, I've done Seinfeld, I've done Frasier, I've done Melrose Place, I've done a lot
I
of TV.
loved Melrose
And I've
Place.
done a lot of comedy. Just Shoot Me, My Sister Sam, a lot of shows. I've done over 150 hours of American television, so comedy
You
has
are an
always been very
icon.
close. Because the thing about comedy is you're not crying. You're laughing. Yes, good.
And then, of course, as a therapist, I'm saying, oh, that was a defense mechanism. That's a defense mechanism. Not to deal with what's really going on. That's your disassociation or whatever.
Well, I disassociate from the intolerant.
That's probably a positive disassociation. I mean, seriously.
Of course. Disassociation from what is absolutely disgusting and avaricious and greedy is what's happening in the world right now. We talked about it earlier. We won't get into the politics of it. But I can assure you that I want to disassociate from pain and theft and criminality in the name of the law.
Then I guess that brings me to the person watching this who's a young person who's dabbling in drugs. And he sees...
You can't dabble in drugs.
Well, that's true. And he's watching the world that we live in, and there's no hope in his mind. What do you say to him? He just, why bother? I mean, I really have a lot of young millennials that I see in my practice. Why bother? There's just nothing, there's no hope.
I'll tell you why.
Well, you're telling them why, but yes, tell me why.
I'll tell you why. It's not about you. It's about who you're around, who you love, your family. Everyone you meet. It's about kindness. It's about having the courage to be compassionate. It's not about becoming a movie star. It's not about becoming a rock star or a high-tech star or a Silicon Valley god. It's about what can you do to make this world a better place. So therefore, that's the point. What Sherry's talking about is they feel useless and they feel that what are they going to do? There's nothing they can do. Well, there's everything you can do. You can put your heart and soul into this. It's not about you, it's about us, always. It has to start with you loving you and respecting yourself. That's a good way to start. And by doing that, you can work out, eat right, and be kind to everyone you meet. That's a good start. And that is the little pebble in the lake of this culture of ours that will ripple out and make life different. So you are as important as any other human being on this planet. So never ever think there's nothing you can do. That's what you can do.
I love that. That's beautiful, Michael. I was just thinking about this article I read in our magazine by one of our authors, and this article was about him wanting to be an actor, and he couldn't get a job as an actor, and he was trying this and trying that, obviously a sober person now. And then he went and he ended up being a teacher for kids on how to act, like a boys' club. And then from there, some of these miracles started happening, and then he started acting. So it's like he did service of what he loved, and then the miracles and the other things came. Not that it's always going to work out that way, but isn't that a great way to use your time?
It's a fantastic, beautiful story, and the thing is that it is going to happen that way. Because if you do follow what I described, your dreams will come true. They just manifest that way. Having a dream to become a movie star and having a dream to express yourself in an artistic way are two completely different things. Yeah. If you get pleasure from teaching a young person, how to sing or how to write, or how
you
to
are
paint,
using your singing talent.
You are a star.
Exactly.
Who cares about reality shows? Who cares about who's number one? It's absurd.
Yeah.
It'll kill you because you're not number one forever. Nobody is.
It's comparison. It's people compare
Comparison
themselves.
is, as they say, odious. Yes.
Yes, it really is. So I guess I was talking about the kid that's dabbling. What about the parent out there that is just heartbroken because, in my case, my husband who couldn't get sober. When do you just stop obsessing and start thinking about yourself? Or when do you
right away
stop? Yeah.
Disassociate immediately. If your husband or your wife
or
your children are on the street and and strung out, there's very little you can do. You can love them. That's obvious. But what happens to them cannot destroy your life. Your life is your life. You're not abandoning anybody. If, the kid comes home for 2 weeks, steals the money from your purse and leaves, and countless times, who's stupid here?
Right.
you're going to put your purse in the bank.
But I always hear from the parents, how can I let him, how can I have this boundary where he needs to now he's going to be homeless? And my attitude is, well, you're kind of co-signing his what if you don't put him out.
Well, you haven't done obviously whatever you have done has not manifested in the young and doing well, or not even, sobriety for sure, but not even a loving life, led. You can't teach somebody how to do that, and that somebody could be your child. And I know this is easy for me to say, but I have personal experience of this, and you let go.
Got it. What about the pot epidemic, where people can just, buy pot? It's legal now. I have a lot of parents go, oh, but it's just pot. I don't happen to feel that way. When my daughter was young, I would say to myself, okay, as long as she's smoking the pot in the house, that's not a problem.
Is your daughter all right now?
My daughter is fine, and she's not an addict, and it all worked out.
There you go.
But I don't know if I would have done it that way today, knowing what I know about the fact that many kids lose.
There's nothing you can do, Sherry. If a kid wants to do drugs, they'll do drugs, with or without you. It's got nothing to do with you. Nothing starts with pot. Everything starts with who you are and what you need and how you're feeling. If you feel that the need to do something, you're going to do it. And fuck everybody. Yeah. It's not I've just worked with these kids in New Orleans, these homeless teens, and man, it breaks my heart to see these kids on the street. What's interesting, though, is they form relationships, tribal communities do exist on the streets. I have a website, Street Hearts, that is, deals with this, and, at least they can get a night's sleep somewhere. But there's really nothing you can do about the human psyche except love them, and let them go, because, there are rules and regulations and political ways of doing this, and that's what I'm working on, is the politicized side of it. But humanistically and emotionally, it's extremely difficult for any parent. But life is not easy, and one must accept that.
Yeah. I do talk a little bit about codependency, love addiction. You said you were married multiple times. Can you relate to that being, quote, an obsession? The next high, the next infatuation,
I just have a short attention span. Excuse me.
I mean, you get addicted to the high of the infatuation.
Yeah, but I'm 71, and I got married when I was 18.
Oh, well.
And then I met the notorious Miss Pamela, who wrote I'm With the Band, a very famous groupie who wrote this huge book about it, Netflix are doing, and about the groupie experience, which was really early feminism when you really think about it. And then we had a kid, and that was fantastic. And then I got sober, and I sort of changed a lot when I got sober.
Okay.
And then I was alone for a long time, and then I just got married a couple of years, 6 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
To my third wife. I've been around a long time, and I applaud people who have had long relationships.
You keep trying. Long relationships, yes, but even the ones like myself that have had multiple, it's like you keep trying until you do it right. Like, you can't judge.
I think so, because the world has shifted so much, and therefore you have changed so much. It's not an excuse, by the way, I'm making. I'm just saying the facts. The facts are my life has changed so many fucking times. I'm allowed to swear, right?
Yes, you can say anything you want. I was going to ask this question about the 12 steps. I wanted to hear your story, your bottom, but there's so many now quote influencers that are starting all kinds of recovery programs. If you look at Instagram, there's all this there's something called the Naked Mind, there's yoga and recovery. Do you think that waters down recovery, all these different ways of getting sober, or do you love that there's all these different ways? Yeah.
Well, there's many different ways to get to heaven, But I mean, the vibe is, yes, I applaud. That's what's so amazing about social media, as long as it doesn't use you. If you use it, correctly, which is not become obsessed with it and just learn, because it's an incredible tool for educative.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah, I think so. And if you want to do yoga and get sober and do yoga instead, great. So I have nothing against the offshoots of, to be candid with you, the 12 steps were written in the 50s, right? That's a long time ago.
Oh, no, I think earlier than that.
Well, okay, the 40s. Yeah. Let's just say that the program has been around an awfully long time. Yeah. And I think it is the 50s.
I don't know.
I think it came to flourish with, you know, in the 50s. But it's a very Christian vibe.
Yes.
Jesus and God and the Bible and all of that. And turn the other cheek, which is great, you know. But things have changed to such a degree, especially women have become equal to men in my world, you know. And you know, misogyny was accepted in those culture, in that culture. And so I think the way to discovery and spiritual awareness, I mean, look at what George Harrison did to the world. I mean, you know, he's the Bill W. of the Beatles.
Exactly, that is so true.
I mean, he brought the Indian consciousness,
the Eastern way of being,
the Eastern philosophy to the Western world. I swear to God, without George Harrison, there wouldn't be yoga mats.
Probably not. I mean, I'm thinking of Jack Kornfield and others that have, you know, written about Buddhism, mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn, but the fact that a rock and roll star brought it here.
Well, the facts are that rock and roll is the language, isn't it? Or was. I mean, rock and roll right now is shall we say, like jazz or something. You know, it's sort of gone.
I mean, I would ask you, you know, what are the greatest things that have happened since you got sober, but you've been sober more than half your life, so that's kind of a silly question. So I guess the question is, what brought you to your, quote, knees? What was your bottom?
Some girl.
A girl?
What brought me to my knees?
What was that pivotal
I'll tell you what was really interesting. And I think
because you were young, and there's someone young out there.
Well, I was 33. I think
that is
some
young.
of your viewers would be. I looked in the mirror one day. I think vanity.
You didn't like how you were looking.
Well, just think about that for a second. Didn't stay that way. You know, I opened the door and I realized that there was a mystical thing happening and that my life was changing. You know, because I was learning to love myself first and foremost, and then others. But at the time, I couldn't believe it, man. My cheekbones had disappeared. It was a nightmare.
That is so hysterical.
Yeah. Well,
but I love
fact.
the honesty.
It's a fact.
I hope somebody's listening to that. I get it. I mean, when I've worked at rehabs, and I did that a lot in my career, when you watch their eyes shine after they get sober, it's the greatest thing you can ever see.
No, it's stunning. But, you know, so vanity, so... and also, I was doing things that was just so not me. I had two really good friends of mine in rock and roll, two very, you know, active people in the world of rock and roll, and who I respected a great deal. And we went to dinner one night, and we were having dinner at this fantastic restaurant. I was drinking everything in sight, you know, just like it was water, just half a dozen, you know, bottles of red wine. And, you know, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom, you know, that vibe.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there, and they look at me. I went to the bathroom, you know, to snort some coke. I came back to the dining room table, and the two of them obviously had been talking. And they looked at me both on either side of me, here and here, and said, "Michael, you're not the Michael that we love."
Aw. They almost did an intervention.
You are not yourself. It was an intervention. But this was a time when there weren't no interventions.
Right, exactly.
There weren't no rehabs.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So these two guys who I loved and respected, and with that,
they missed you.
They missed me. Exactly, perfect. They got up from the table and left me there.
Oh my goodness, that was shocking. Probably.
Well, my whole world just caved in because I'm sitting at the table, and my friends leave. My dear close friends, musicians, leave. Leave? How bad could it possibly be for them to leave? Bad.
You know what I'm thinking when you say that? I think like we often talk about tough love, but actually that wasn't tough love, that was love.
It was also disgust.
But it was love.
It was love, but they were disgusted.
Yeah.
They were outraged. They were in the moment guys, entertaining, rock and roll, you know, power. And they just went, fuck you. Not really.
Well, that's what I mean. It was tough love, but it was because they loved you that they did that.
Yeah.
If they didn't care, they wouldn't care.
And the following night, one of them came over and took me to a meeting, and that was that. And I haven't had a drink since.
You're amazing.
Or
and
any drugs,
I don't ever take, when I hear this, I never take that for granted. When I think of what my people that I've loved gone through and people that can't stay sober. So
I didn't struggle
really
at
are.
all.
And you never even had a relapse or anything.
No. I was overjoyed with it. Plus, there were some really cute girls there. You know, keep coming back indeed.
So
No, I mean, you know, it was the days of the naked light bulb and cigarette stubs in the ashtrays.
Right, and the donuts.
And the donuts.
I think they still have donuts.
But yeah.
So tell us what you're up to. You know, we could go on and on about your career. You're an icon and so forth, and you've done so much. But what would you like people to know about? What's coming up for you? Because this probably will be out in the next few weeks or months.
Well, I'd love your audience to know that I have a radio program on SiriusXM Channel 21 every day for 3 hours. It's Little Steven's Underground Garage. Little Steven Van Zandt, of course, Bruce Springsteen's guitar player, an incredible artist on his own. And what he's done is he's taken on this mission to bring rock and roll and soul music from the past and from the present into the now. And I do 3 hours a day.
So there's other hosts that do other
hours. There are
hours?
other DJs on our channel.
Okay, got it.
But it is a channel.
Yes.
Channel 21. There's many channels on
Got
SiriusXM. And I also do a couple of shows, interview shows on other channels. But on Little Steven's, it's 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern. And it's 9 p.m. to midnight on the West Coast, on Pacific time.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of, you know.
And you talk for 3 hours?
You know, yes, but I play a lot of music.
Okay.
But the music is blues, the music is R&B, the music is British Invasion, Beatles, Zeppelin, Muddy Waters, the Drifters.
Do you ever go live anymore? Do you ever do live concerts?
I do. Oh, God, yes. I played the Viper Room 2 nights ago.
Well, I would like to go. When is your next live?
My next show is the 7th of August. At the Redwood Bar in downtown LA. I specifically got transgender rock bands playing with us.
I'm gonna write you because I have to see you in August. I may be in Martha's Vineyard at that
August
time.
7th and August 28th.
Oh,
and then
August 28th, yes.
August 28th, and we played the Viper Room the other night. It was extraordinary. And you know, you can get hold of me, michaeldebar.com.
I sure will.
Or you can get hold of me, you know, by listening to us on the radio. I'm in MacGyver. I start the 4th season in MacGyver, playing the bad guy, which I did in the first run of it. You know, I played
a
the
bad guy
Murdoc.
or bad boy?
Oh, darling, it's a bad man. It's a bad assassin man. Yeah, and I kill people on telly. That's what I've done for 40 years: is kill people on TV.
You definitely have the look. Well, but then with the nail polish, I don't know. That's kind of you're the adronymous. How do you say it?
Androgynous.
Androgynous bad boy.
Well, I don't wear the nail polish killing people on television.
Oh, okay.
This would be too confusing for the audience.
I guess so. I guess it would be.
Seeing that you're confused about it, but
I am.
It's you know, it's just something I do. I don't do it all the time, but we're just at a gig and I do it and I go like this, and because my whole thing is we've got to come together.
Yeah.
And there are so many wonderful experiences to be had by accepting. Shall we say the odd? And you know, I've been odd all my life, you know, and I've been, you know, people have cared for me, and
like Lady Gaga and her little monsters, you know.
Well, sort of, yeah. I'm dealing with big monsters, though, you know. You know, the monstrosity of homelessness, and you know, and Gaga, I applaud her. Taylor Swift's new record out right now is about that. Miley Cyrus. There's a lot of people that are championing the people who have been hurt so badly because of their, you know, indescribable sexuality. You know, I've been heterosexual all my life, and there was that one night in Cleveland, but I don't want to talk about it. And sure, and you know, it's but I accept all things.
Aw, you're so generous of your time to do this with everything going on.
My pleasure.
Driving out here, I mean, is there like an album coming out that you want people to know about too?
Yeah, I got a record coming out July 5th on Wicked Cool Records. You can get it from my website, michaeldebar.com. It's an homage to vinyl. It's called Crackle and Hiss.
Oh,
like you know when you hear the vinyl records.
Yeah.
You know, and on the B side of the single, I did "Stop in the Name of Love" by the Supremes, which is very au courant now, given our, shall we say, our political climate.
Right.
Stop in the name of love.
Oh, you are about love, and because of that, I want to give you a hug to
Sure,
close this because you are love.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for not
knowing everything about you.
Well, that's okay.
It would have just been too much, but now I learned it all today.
The truth of the matter is the crux of our conversation is based on the concept of loving each other, but most of all, of loving yourself so you can be loved. And if that
Beautiful.
works, you'll be okay.
Great. Thank you.